Good evening, everyone. I'm Laura Ingraham. This is the Ingraham Angle from Washington tonight. Thanks, as always, for spending some time with us. Still the champ. That's the focus of tonight's angle. The Trump MAGA political obituary has been written more times than Billy Bob Thornton has been married. From The Guardian, the signals of Trump's waning influence are everywhere. Back in January, the lazy libs at the Washington Post were sure that the so-called GOP backlash over the Minnesota ICE operations had signaled a tougher landscape for Trump. Now, first, most incumbent presidents face midterm headwinds. We know that. Bush, Obama, Biden, Trump, all of them. But as far as Trump losing influence, that's just more wishful thinking. Now, they thought Trump was really on the ropes when Indiana state senators bucked him on redistricting late last year.
Indiana Republicans just handed President Trump one of his biggest defeats yet.
I'm proud of the Republican legislators who took a stand. Donald Trump thought that he could come into the Hoosier cafeteria and take lunch money, and he and his crew left with a black eye.
Yeah, who has the black eye now? Well, it was back in December when Trump had promised to support primaries against those renegade Republicans. And when all the votes were tallied last night, 5 out of the 8 GOP incumbents in the Indiana Senate who bucked him on redistricting lost to the candidates Trump had endorsed. Another one still too close to call tonight. Of course, they all could have just asked Trump impeachment queen Liz Cheney, how did her primary turn out back in 2022? It turns out Trump is just better at politics than most of these people. And he knew Wyoming voters better than Liz did. Now, this is really why the left hates Trump, by the way, because he wins. After all, liberals only love Republicans who cave and lose.
These Republicans in Indiana, you probably don't agree with them on much. I don't agree with them on much in terms of their policies, but they knew what was coming if they stood up to Trump. They stood up to him anyway. And I just wonder how different you think our country and our politics could be if more Republicans had that in them.
I do believe a different kind of politics is possible.
Possible. Oh, a different kind of politics. Yeah, that man, by the way, ran for president and will again. The beard doesn't help. Now, the truth is, Trump vexes all of them because he doesn't play by their rules. He never did. He called it as he saw it. The establishment was an abject failure, both on the left and the right, and he took them all out. He refused to be their political roadkill, and he never stopped fighting. He's still not stopped fighting. Now, Obama is the smartest one they have in the Democrat Party still. There's no one who touches him. And even he could not stop Trump. So now Obama's relegated to going on some, these B-list talk shows and pining away for the old days when Republicans just essentially agreed with him on everything.
I'm worried about the Republican Party, not just the Democratic Party. I'd love a loyal opposition. I'd love a Republican Party that was conservative in some ways, that didn't agree with me on a whole bunch of stuff, but believed in rule of law and judicial independence and science, and wasn't constantly tapping into our worst impulses. And there has been a Republican Party like that in the past, and I want to see that return.
Okay, Obama's worried. Did he talk about the rule of law, by the way? Yeah, he's worried. Yeah, he's worried that the DOJ will finally nail everyone who had a hand in Crossfire Hurricane, and that Brennan and Clapper will finally spill their guts about Obama's role in it. That's what he's worried about. The nerve of him talking about the rule of law. His intel community spied on Trump and lied in their FISA applications. And he likes a loyal opposition? No, come on. He wants that old party back, the old GOP. Yeah, the party that got shellacked in 2006, in 2008, and in 2012. The mask is off. A decade since he left office, Obama seems to think that the only way to beat Trump and MAGA is to go full socialist.
You look at somebody like Mamdani, who I think is an extraordinary talent. He wants people to be able to afford housing in New York.
He also, not only does he talk like a normal person, but he lives a normal life, but he names what is obviously wrong.
Yes.
I love seeing those two spoon with Mamdani. Now, the truth is, liberalism, it's already failed. It's failed in New York. It failed in Chicago, failed in St. Louis, failed in Los Angeles, in San Francisco, in Oakland, in Portland, in Seattle. The list goes on and on. But the red states, they're booming. Their population's increasing. And Donald Trump remains the most powerful force in politics, not just here in the U.S., but worldwide. And anyone, and I mean anyone, trying to diminish him or MAGA is either willfully ignorant or just plain ignorant. And that's The Angle.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.